morning of Wednesday, November 18th, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln boarded a special train bound for a small Pennsylvania town called Gettysburg. He had been asked to make a few appropriate remarks at a ceremony convened to consecrate the grounds of a new cemetery. The burial ground would be the final resting place for 3,000 Union soldiers who had lost their lives in 3 horrible days of battle the previous July. Lincoln felt uneasy. He had not been able to find sufficient time to complete the speech that he was expected to present at the ceremony dedication the very next day. What words could adequately express the horror of the battle? What could he say to communicate his own profound sadness over the deaths of so many gallant soldiers? What comments could possibly convey the somber appreciation of a grateful nation for their sacrifice? What tender words could he offer to the comfort of the hearts of grieving loved ones? So many mothers, so many fathers, so many wives, daughters, and sons. The president poured over his speech as the train wound its way through the rolling Pennsylvania countryside. Finally, arriving at Gettysburg, he retired to his room, where he continued to ponder, to write, revise, and then write some more, until well into the night. At breakfast the next morning, Lincoln made his final revisions, carefully folded the speech, and gently placed it in his coat pocket. Accompanied by 9 governors, 3 cabinet officials, various members of Congress, foreign diplomats, and yes, military officials, the president mounted a chestnut horse and joined in a procession to the cemetery. One of the residents who lined the parade route that day remarked that Lincoln bowed with, quote, a modest smile and uncovered head to the throng of women, men, and children that greeted him from the doors and the windows of the town. At the cemetery, an audience of 9,000, though some would say many more, crowded around the speaker's platform in a broad half circle. One of those assembled there later recalled that, quote, all about were traces of the fierce combat. Rifle pits, cut and scarred trees, broken fences, pieces of artillery, wagons and harnesses, scraps of blue and gray, and bent canteens were still littering that low hilltop. The ceremony began. Chaplain Thomas Stockton offered the invocation. Edwin Everett, the former governor of Massachusetts and one of the nation's most famous orators now, presented an eloquent address that lasted over 2 hours. After he was done, Abraham Lincoln arose. He shook Everett's hand and removed the papers from his coat. He put on his wire spectacles, and then he turned to the anxious throng before him. The audience grew immediately still. Then Lincoln spoke for just over 2 minutes. But in 10 sentences, he invoked those exalted principles of freedom, of humanity, and of a unified nation to which he, like the brave soldiers he honored that day, had dedicated his own life. And these are the words he spoke. These are the words that Abraham Lincoln spoke that day at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggle here, have consecrated far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so newly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.